are these people?
This article is an opinion piece from Common Dreams, written by CJ Policronio.
Sure.
Forgive me for spelling. The Inflation Reduction Bill should just be the beginning. Without more direct intervention on the part of the public sector in combating the climate crisis, what IRA will produce is a green capitalist industry with profit-making as its overriding concern. The Schumer-Manchin Reconciliation Bill, known as the Inflation Reduction Act, which is expected to become law after it cleared the Senate on a party line vote, and key House Democrats have already signaled that they will vote for it when it moves to lower chambers of Congress, aims to boost the economy and fight the climate crisis. It will also extend the Affordable Care Act subsidy through 2024, lower a handful of prescription drugs prices for those who are on Medicare, boost RRS reinforcement, and require large corporations to pay at least 15% of their totals in taxes.
I got you.
Oh. Can't see now.
Oh, you can't see.
Well,
there
part
you
of
go.
there we go.
Yep.
This reconciliation bill is a slimmed down version of the Build Back Better Act. It's a compromise and therefore hardly adequate to address the needs of American working class people and confront the climate challenge. In fact, to call the RA a historical piece of legislation is an overstatement. We've heard a lot of that in mainstream media this week. But it's a step in the right direction, especially for a country where corporations and big business run roughshod over the common good. I will preface by saying I had some, again, this is an opinion piece. I have some takes, I get why CJ is trying to make this sound a little bit more, positive than it is. I get it, but I think he might be overdoing it a little bit. But moving on. First, forget inflation in spite of what the title that the bill carries. RA will have no impact on inflation in 2022 and negligible effect in 2023, according to a report from the Congressional Budget Office.
Cool. You got it? Is your thing still working? There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You need to remove that screen now.
This one? Yep.
Thank you. A major piece of the bill focuses on healthcare. There are some positive aspects in it, but again, hardly enough to make anything beyond a moderate impact on the well-being of average Americans. It extends Affordable Care Act subsidies for the next 3 years, lowers somewhat Medicare costs for low-income families, and permits Medicare for the first time in its history to negotiate prices for some prescription drugs. Prescription drugs cost much more in the US, in some instances by as much as over 400%, as in the case of Humira, which is used to treat many inflammatory conditions in adults, than in other developed countries, and the US remains the only country in the developed world without a universal healthcare system. As Bernie Sanders charged, this bill does nothing to address the systematic dysfunctionality of the American healthcare system. RA also seeks to address tax fairness and reduce inequality. It claims that it will create a more equitable United States by compelling corporations with more than $1 billion in profits to pay a 50% minimum tax. Conservative Democrat Senator Kyrsten Sinema, who always sides with the rich and the corporations, first forced the removal of the carried interest tax provision from the bill, and then delivered a gift to private equity firms by protecting them from the minimum tax aimed at large corporations. Forcing corporations making more than $1 billion in profits pay a minimum corporate tax rate of 15% can hardly be considered a major step forward in addressing the issue of inequality. However, the corporate minimum tax in the Inflation Reduction Act has quite different rules from the global minimum tax. It is possible, but not likely, that corporations could end up facing both taxes, and that would indeed be a useful start towards tackling extreme inequality. I have a slight problem with this, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Reef, pop quiz for you.
Okay.
Do you remember a certain event that Kyrsten Sinema attended a couple of months ago?
Vaguely, I do remember talking about it. I'm trying to remember exactly which one it was. Like, I remember there was. You're gonna tell me. I mean, I might as well fail the pop quiz and say I don't know. You know, because now I'm like, what is it? I remember it.
Shoot. Funny enough, I actually forgot the name of it. You know, I have to look it up real fast, or if you can.
Yeah, I got
But
it.
like, but you know, there was a very secretive event that's held in DC once a year, where certain corporations certain people from certain corporations around the world come together to talk, you know, about global affairs. And Kirsten Sinema was the only congressperson who was invited, as far as we know, according to the list that we were able to obtain.
This is the one Max, Blumenthal and
Yes.
stuff, right?
This was the one that Max Blumenthal tried to get information at, but he got turned away. This is the event that Franco from Frank Analysis also tried to get in, but got turned away. So if you just remember the name of the
That's what I'm looking for. Franco will have videos on if I could look at his channel.
Yeah. But regardless, Kirsten was at that event. And obviously, being the only congresswoman, you can figure out that why would she be the only congresswoman at this event? You know, and our guess would be is to kind of help corporations, you know, maintain the boku bucks, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, so the fact that, you know, she forced the removal of the interest tax provision from the bill makes a lot of sense, especially in light of knowing that she was at this
The Bilderberg.
There we go.
Yeah, that's it.
So yeah, she was at the Bilderberg conference back in the spring. So obviously, this kind of ties into this bill, you know, that she removed that provision, you know, to protect corporations. So,
right.
you know, so again, the idea that CJ tried to kind of say like maybe it could be a good thing. No, it's not. So anything that supports corporations is almost never good, you know, for us within the working class. So but yeah, moving on.
Okay.
Energy and climate are what the Inflation Reduction Act is mostly all about. IRA would raise approximately $739 billion over 10 years and spend $433 billion on new investments over a decade, resulting in an overall deficit reduction of roughly $300 billion. The big winners from this deal are indeed energy and climate, as IRA pledges $369 billion towards energy security and clean energy. The climate and environmental measures included in the bill are expected to reduce carbon emissions by 40% below 2005 levels by 2030. So let's take a look at the energy and climate provisions included in the Act. There are dozens of clean energy provisions in IRA that accelerate the deployment of clean energy technologies and reduce carbon emissions, all while retaining and even enhancing the reliance of fossil fuels. Indeed, the most striking aspect of the energy and climate provisions in IRA is the undeniable concerted effort on part of its architects to balance climate protections with interests of the fossil fuel industry. As such, there is no pathway in IRA towards a transition to a post-fuel economy. First, there's a plethora of tax credits for energy produced from certain renewable sources, as well as for projects designed for the installation of solar and wind facilities located in low-income communities. Direct air capture facilities are also eligible for generous credits, provided that they capture at least 1,000 metric tons. Tax credits are also extended to biodiesel on alternate fuels, green hydrogen, and residential and commercial energy efficient buildings.
Wait, back up one. Yeah, alternative fuels, biodiesel. Okay. Green hydrogen. Right. All right. Sounds like they're trying to sneak in some fossil fuel lobbying in there, but okay.
Well, yeah, that's it. Well, yeah, that's what exactly what it is.
Yeah.
The act also enhances the tax credit available for certain new clean vehicles, create new incentives for clean energy investments, and establishes a credit for qualifying sustainable transportation fuel.
Like clean coal.
Like prop.
Yeah.
What's that?
Clean coal is what it reminds me of. This
Clean
whole
coal.
right.
Right. So I tweeted this out, I believe on Monday.
Yeah.
Because I said, once again, the devil is in the details.
Yeah.
So there was an article on The Verge that, according to, actually, oops, to Andrew J. Hawkins from The Verge, no electric vehicles on the market today qualify for the new EV tax credit.
Yeah.
Continuing. Congress is poised to approve newly expanded tax credits for electric vehicles, but the rules are written in such a way as to effectively disqualify every electric vehicle that's currently on the market today. That's because most EVs run on lithium-ion batteries that are mostly made in China. The nation has a lock on some 76% of the battery market today. The US only represents 8%. And to get a deal passed in a deadlocked Senate, Democrats agreed to provisions that would require eligible vehicles to use batteries that are made in North America. The Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, which passed the Senate this weekend in a party-line vote, would require batteries to have at least 40% of materials sourced from North America or a U.S. trading partner by 2024 in order to be eligible for a $7,500 tax break. By 2029, battery components would have to be 100% made in North America. Batteries that contain minerals that were extracted, processed, or recycled by a foreign entity of concern, which is defined as a state sponsoring terrorism or countries blocked by the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control, would be ineligible for the credit. China is listed as a foreign entity of concern by the federal government. Democrats, including West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, who negotiated the deal in secret with Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, are running on a tough on China message this year. But the auto industry says that the new requirements would basically disqualify every EV on the market today. According to the Alliance for Automotive Innovation, the auto industry's main lobbying group, there are currently 72 EV models available for purchase in the United States, including battery, plug-in hybrid, and fuel cell electric vehicles. Of those models, 70% are ineligible for the tax credit when the bill passes. And by 2029, when the additional sourcing requirements go into effect, none will qualify for the full credit.
Gotcha.
The $7,500 credit might exist on paper, but no vehicles will qualify for this purchase incentive over the next few years. John Bozzella, president and CEO of the Alliance, said in a blog post. That's going to be a major setback for a collective target of 50% electric vehicle sales by 2030.
Mm-hmm.
So any thoughts on that?
I mean, the fact that no EV models available for like, you know, and it's only because hold on, so it's only because of like, the fact that the lithium's not made here.
Basically.
Okay. And like nothing, not even the. I guess it's all because of all of them have batteries, and if you're not making any of the batteries here,
right, those have to be outsourced.
Yeah,
and
Samsung is sending them.
Right, and essentially those are outsourced from China. And like right now, especially now, given and I think this especially kind of goes into play of what Nancy Pelosi did, last week, or well, 2 weeks ago now, which kind of jeopardized all of that. This also kind of plays into that as far as, if China is now a country of concern where we can't even ship these batteries in, or a car in that has those materials, they would be useless for the credit.
Yeah.
But not
What's up,
only
Lauren?
that, like electric EVs are generally more expensive anyway.
Yeah, they're ridiculous.
Yeah, they start for maybe, I think on average, maybe around 40,000,
Yeah.
So a $7,500 tax break is not going to help people or going to convince people to buy an EV, when a gas-based vehicle is going to be a lot cheaper for most people at this point.
Yeah. Until we can't afford gas,
right.
So
it's basically pushing, again, the working class out of this. So only the rich would be able to afford an EV, or for us, probably having to go into debt in order to get one.
Yeah.
Even if you use the credit. So it's, again, something that is not necessarily helpful for working people if they really want to help the environment and buy this type of car. Most of them are going to be out, and given this article, none of them will qualify for the credit anyway.
Right.
So no incentive to buy an EV at this point, really, given this. But anyway, I just wanted to add this article into it because even with that credit, I was just kind of like,
Yeah.
like this doesn't sound quite right, and to be fair, I know nothing about cars, but then I saw this tweet, like early in the week. So it's like, and I read it, okay. Then it was kind of like, yeah, that probably sounds more in line with, what is probably true, or what people are not necessarily telling you. But anyway, back to article number 1.
Okay.
There is financial assistance in addition to tax incentives for renewable energy, as well as for carbon capture systems for rural and agricultural communities. Rural America will be the recipient of approximately $40 billion in clean energy programs and climate change mitigation projects over the next 10 years. There's also funding for the National Forest System and for state and private forestry conservation programs. There are many positive but also negative aspects behind the climate investment initiatives being included in IRA. Renewable energy funding across the board is a foundation building block of a clean energy economy. However, without more direct intervention on the part of the public sector in combating the climate crisis, what IRA will produce is a green capitalist industry with profit making as an overriding concern. Worse yet, investing in unproven carbon capture technologies is a sure way to keep the fossil fuel industry in the game. Indeed, IRA provides no pathway to a post-fossil fuel economy and shies away from tackling climate injustice. As part of its goal to maintain enhanced energy protection, which in reality means protecting the long-term interests of the fossil fuel industry, IRA mandates new sales of oil and gas drilling in Alaska and the Gulf of Mexico.
Of course it does.
Extends the definition of outer continental shelf to include land both within the exclusive economic zone of the U.S. and adjacent to U.S. territory, and essentially nullifies President Biden's September 8, 2020 memorandum withdrawing certain areas from leasing.
Right.
Currently,
the one good thing that people have said he's done ever.
Right.
Like, okay.
So remember where Biden was like, no fracking?
Yeah. I mean, just among the many things. I mean, I remember articles complaining about like, you guys can't even take a good thing when you see it. He closed the Arctic to drill. It's like, okay, I'll believe it when it happens, and here it is not happening. Yeah, crazy.
Currently, there are more than 9,000 approved but unused leases for drilling on federal and tribal lands, and IRA is throwing open even more public lands to oil drilling. In addition, IRA restricts the Department of the Interior from issuing a right-of-way for wind and solar energy development on federal land during the 10-year period after the bill is enacted. Coal Baron Joe Manchin also managed to secure a pledge from Democrats for support for IRA that there would be no obstacles to the construction and operation of controversial gas line known as Mountain Valley Pipeline. His corruption, as in the case of cinema, knows no boundaries. In 2021, the US committed itself to reducing carbon emissions to 52% below 2005 levels by 2030. IRA expects to cut US greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030. Thus, it narrows but does not close the gap with the goal the Biden administration set under the Paris Climate Agreement. However, it is highly debatable whether the climate provisions included in IRA would actually reduce emissions by 40% by 2030. Providing $369 billion over 10 years to fight the climate crisis is not enough in itself to reduce carbon emissions by 40% by 2030. It all depends on how private investment in new energy supply infrastructure IRA will encourage. And actually, I will read this.
Okay.
Economist Robert Pollin of the University of Massachusetts at Amherst believed that public spending on clean energy through IRA will encourage at least another $600 billion in private spending, which would bring the total public plus private clean energy spending on the IRA to approximately $100 billion per year, or $1 trillion over 10 years. So basically saying what we're doing right now is chicken change in comparison to what how much money
should be doing. Right.
Right. In an interview at Truthout, Pollin states the following: by my own estimates and those of others, for the US to reach the emission reduction target set up by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, 50% carbon CO2 emissions cut by 2030 and zero emissions by 2050 will require about $400 billion in today's economy and an average of $600 billion per year between now and 2050. So the total amount of public and private clean energy spending generated by the IRA would deliver at best about 25% of necessary funding level. And this is supposed to be the best case scenario. The Inflation Reduction Act should have been a transformational piece of legislation, but fortunately it isn't. It is a step in the right direction and clear proof that activism can initiate tangible change. The struggle continues.
The struggle continues.
Well, the struggle continues, but again, like, this is the compromise of the compromise, basically.
Yeah.
And so, number one. Number two, the fact that they managed to get Joe Manchin to sign off on it basically was like, okay, what is he getting out of this? And it's not going to be a good thing, you know? But basically this all goes to say, you know, the Democrats, you know, are doing the bare minimum, you know, in terms of what they should be doing. Because according to this article, it's not even at best a quarter of what they're supposed to do, you know? So I don't know. So like I said, I think with this article, I think CJ was trying to put a positive spin to this and saying it's something.
Yeah.
But given, like, you know, like if we don't do something today, well, really yesterday, you know, like we're going to have more serious climate issues, you know, on the horizon, you know, I would think that we should be willing to spend money, as much money as possible, to kind of negate a lot of those issues instead of focusing on money in Ukraine, which is causing a lot more climate change, but no one's talking about that.
Yeah.
But instead giving the bare minimum to give the illusion of, oh, you know, we did something, you know, so vote for us, you know, and it really does nothing. But I think more importantly, you know, like, and I think especially given that we're in a pandemic right now, it's like, and people are saying this as a win, but my thing is, what are people going to tangibly get out of this now?
Yeah.
You know, people need to see the results now in order for them to feel like the Democrats are doing something that is remotely in the right direction. And so far, it's just been very minimal or nothing at best, you know,
Right.
at the worst of what Democrats are doing right now. So, you know, I feel like Democrats are feeling like this might be enough for them to maintain, you know, the Congress and maybe the Senate, you know, in November, but I don't think so. Like, you know, because, you know, like I said, if economic issues don't improve for people within the next month or so,
Yeah.
you know, this bill means nothing. It means nothing already, but like people are not going to talk about this bill and being like, oh, this changed my life,
Right.
you know? So, you know, it's just a lot of good stuff for corporations, basically. You know, even maybe quote unquote, maybe well intended, but still under a capitalist bend,
Yeah.
essentially, is what, you know, this bill basically amounts to.
I mean, it brings us back to that inclusive capitalism stuff that, you know, we talked
Right.
about a couple of weeks, where it's like, and this, what's the term that's Convocanch has been using, this what is it, interpolar intersectional imperialism, that phrase that's been thrown around recently, today specifically. But I think Fee was the first person I heard use that, so I'll credit her. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's just frustrating because it's like climate stuff needs to have happened like a decade ago for it to really
Not
impact stuff.
even
Like,
not even like
yeah,
really since the 70s,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah,
So, and you know, this is what we're getting. You know, when they're saying we should be spending what, like like $1 billion?
yeah.
I would probably argue maybe even more than that at this point, you know, towards climate. But
Mm-hmm.
there's the Democrats for you.
Yeah.